Secretary William Hague has said that moves to head off a showdown at the United Nations over Palestinian statehood have made no progress. The Palestinians are pressing for a vote at the United Nations following the continued lack of progress toward a negotiated settlement with Israel. Talks broke down a year ago, despite exhaustive efforts by the Obama administration. Palestinians want a state based on pre-1967 borders, but a separation barrier built by Israel and dozens of Israeli settlements have dramatically encroached on Palestinian territory. Another crucial sticking point is the status of Jerusalem, which now sits largely on the Israeli side of the wall. A key demand of the Palestinians is to have a capital in the east of the city, but Israel is refusing to move either on Jerusalem or on the settlements. Matt Fry is at the UN in New York. We'll be hearing from him in a moment. But first, to Jonathan Rugman, who is in the West Bank town of Ramallah. Jonathan, what exactly is the atmosphere in Ramallah tonight? What are people kind of waiting for and hoping for?
Well, John, autumn may be approaching and the shadows here are certainly lengthening. But there's something of an Arab Spring in the atmosphere here this evening, a carnival atmosphere, if you like. Palestinians have been out driving their cars through the centre of Ramallah, honking their horns, waving their Palestinian flags, all in anticipation of Palestine's moment in the sun. The moment on Friday when the Palestinian president stands up in New York and says he wants the UN Security Council to recognise Palestine as a state. They've even built a massive wooden UN seat here in the centre of Ramallah. It's actually just in the square behind me, and this is going to be the 194th seat at the UN if Palestine gets recognised, and the chances are, well, the Americans have said they're going to veto that at the Security Council if it comes to a vote, in which case it'll get referred down to a committee stage or to the UN General Assembly. But I've been asking ordinary Palestinians on the streets of Ramallah this evening what this week's events mean to them.
To all the world, we must live like other country lives, you know? We have a right.
I don't understand why the United States of America doing a problem, says every time veto if the Mahmoud Abbas go to the UN. Why?
How long have you been waiting for a state?
For a state? Since when I am young, when I'm 2 years old.
I want to live. I want to be able to go to Jerusalem. I can't go out of Ramallah.
Jonathan, we've only reached this state of Palestinian affairs because of the, well, unity, shall we call it, between Fatah and Hamas down there in Gaza. Is it all sweetness and light in Palestine?
No, it's not. I mean, in fact, in that last voice you just heard a Palestinian saying, look, it's all very well we get recognised internationally, but I would quite like to travel from Ramallah down the road to Jerusalem, which, as a Palestinian resident of Ramallah, I cannot do. And in fact, there was a throwback to the bad old days today up in Nablus, further north from here, where we saw Palestinians throwing stones at Israeli security forces. You have to remember there are still Israeli checkpoints, still Israeli army bases here in the West Bank, and the Israeli security forces returned fire with tear gas. And on top of that, Israeli settlers were marching today and throwing stones at the Palestinians. And what does this tell you? Well, it tells you that despite all the economic progress that's been made here in the West Bank, the fundamental problems haven't changed. There's still the issue of the return of Palestinian refugees who want to go back to Israel. There's the issue of the status of Jerusalem. That hasn't been resolved. Ramallah, where I am now, would not be the capital of a Palestinian state. That, in theory, would be Jerusalem. And, of course, there is the perhaps most pressing issue of all, which is the issue of these settlers who are not going away. In fact, these Israeli settler numbers are growing. So the risk, I think, for the Palestinians is that they have a wonderful day on Friday. They hear their president speaking to the world, and then they wake up on Saturday with an enormous hangover and say, well, what has really changed for us here on the ground? Not much. And in fact, if the Israelis retaliate, things could get worse.
Jonathan Rugman in Ramallah.